everyone and welcome to Smart World with CNBC. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue dans Smart World avec CNBC. Je suis ravie de vous retrouver pour ce format 100% hybride. At the top of this program, on fera le point sur les résultats des entreprises qui seront publiés cette semaine. Que fera Joe Biden pour contrôler l'épidémie de coronavirus et relancer l'économie américaine? On reviendra sur son plan de relance et sur sa mise en place d'une cellule de crise dès aujourd'hui. Et on décryptera la stratégie de Facebook et Twitter pour combattre la désinformation avant la confirmation officielle de Joe Biden. C'est parti, let's go! Companies are now in the last leg of announcement of September quarter results. Chaque semaine, CNBC fait le point sur les informations business importantes de la semaine à venir. McDonald's et BioNTech et Disney publieront leurs résultats. Apple organise son troisième grand événement le mardi 10 novembre. CNBC's Tyler Madison looks ahead to what are likely to be next week's top business and financial stories.
Some key earnings, Apple's next event, and an exciting week for video gamers all in the week ahead. More earnings reports are coming. McDonald's and Beyond Meat will release results on Monday. Ride-sharing firm Lyft on Tuesday. Key reports from Disney and the tech giant Cisco, they come on Thursday. Busy week for Apple. On Tuesday, Apple holds another event. This time, new Macs are expected. They would feature Apple's own chips for the first time. Then on Friday, the final two versions of the latest iPhones will go on sale. The smaller 5.4-inch iPhone 12 mini and the larger 6.7-inch Max models hit the shelves that day. Huge week for video game fans. The long-awaited new consoles debut just in time for the holiday season. Microsoft's Xbox Series X arrives on Tuesday at a retail price of $499. And on Thursday, Sony's PlayStation 5 goes on sale at the same price point. Pre-orders for both systems sold out quickly at most retailers. Gaming sales have been super hot over the past few months amid the coronavirus pandemic. And as if that wasn't enough, Activision Blizzard's latest Call of Duty video game hits the market on Friday, Black Ops Cold War. The installment can be played in the new next-gen consoles. The highly anticipated game also compatible with previous Xbox and PlayStation models. I'm Tyler Mathison. Get all your business news on CNBC.
D'autres entreprises ont-elles aussi prévu de publier leurs résultats? C'est le cas du site de paris sportif DraftKings et de la biotech Novavax. Et certaines entreprises créent la surprise en ces temps difficiles. C'est le cas de Booking Holdings. Booking revenue beats estimates on summer lift in travel. This quarter was definitely an improvement from a record 84% plunge in the second quarter. Let's listen to Booking CEO on CNBC.
You, Glenn, welcome back to CNBC. Good to have you on an important day like today where we have election results pouring in, ongoing stimulus talks, and a COVID case count surging in parts of the U.S. And let's start right there, Glenn, because you did see a significant improvement in your third quarter results compared to the second quarter. But your thoughts on these lockdowns being reintroduced and what that could mean for the state of travel and your fourth quarter numbers?
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for having me. And you're absolutely right. You know, the summer was looking more optimistic. We went from a low of newly reported numbers in April of down 85%, and it started coming back up in the third quarter. We were only down about on average 37%, so things looked okay. But then things started going south as those viruses started increasing, as governments started putting in restrictions, the numbers started going the wrong way. And in October, we were down 58%. And last night, I talked about how in the previous 7 days, our newly reported numbers, or newly reported room nights was down 70%. And that's a global average. In certain parts of the world, it's worse.
And do you think that if lockdowns are reintroduced here in the U.S., Glenn, it will accelerate demand for homes over hotels? That home rental is certainly one of the bright spots for your company. You have 6.1 million alternative accommodation listings right ahead of an Airbnb IPO where you're neck and neck in terms of listings. What do you do there to help that business grow?
You know, it's interesting how in the second quarter, our alternative accommodations area was 40% of our total accommodations. And then in the third quarter, it dropped a bit. It was only about a third of the total amount of newly booked rooms. So it's interesting that people feeling more comfortable as the danger of the virus seemed to recede, people felt more comfortable about getting a hotel. Now, of course, it may reverse as viruses go up. Perhaps we will see more people looking back at the alternative accommodations. Look, from our company, we have both. We offer the most of both. That way, customers can make their own choice in what they want. Do they want a home or do you want a hotel? We offer both.
And that's a decision now coming up. We are 18 days away from Thanksgiving, and there are families across the nation, Glenn, who still don't know what exactly they should do. Should they get on a plane to be with their family as this COVID case count continues to rise? You've got a unique lens into bookings data for this Thanksgiving and holidays. What does it tell you about demand, especially in comparison to the same time last year?
Well, it's very hard to know because what we call the booking window, how far in advance someone's going to travel, when they book, it's shortened so much. We are seeing people booking a lot of their travel within just a day or 2 days. Lots of people say, I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to make my decision. I'm going to wait. Now they know that there's a lot of supply. They don't have to worry that there's not going to be a room on a plane or room in a home or a hotel. But of course, Thanksgiving, always a very busy place to travel. And the problem is, of course, the airlines have pulled back a lot of supply. So I'm not sure if people are making the right decision. If you want to travel, perhaps you would want to make sure, start booking that, make sure there is a seat.
Selon Glenn Fogel, le PDG de Bookings, même si les résultats sont meilleurs que prévu, l'entreprise reste sur le qui-vive. Il prévient qu'une nouvelle vague continuerait de peser sur les perspectives de sa société. Selon lui, l'augmentation récente des cas de Covid-19 en Europe et aux États-Unis, associée au temps froid et aux restrictions de voyage, entraîneront probablement une deuxième baisse qui durera jusqu'au début du printemps 2021. Vimeo raises $150 million of equity. Le financement fait suite à une croissance record chez Vimeo, fortement tirée par la demande des entreprises en temps de pandémie. Les commentaires de la PDG de Vimeo, Anjali Sud, sur CNBC.
3 years ago, we officially pivoted Vimeo away from being a viewing destination that competed with YouTube to being this software technology platform for businesses. And we did it because we were seeing organically within the platform more and more businesses needing to use video to reach their customers on social media, to put video on their websites, to sell their products and promote their offerings. And we sort of developed a thesis that the same way video was once really only in the hands of filmmakers and Hollywood studios, and then it became a consumer opportunity. And with our phones, we were all able to consume and create video content. We had this thesis that the next era of professional video would be for businesses and organizations. And we imagined a future that at the time felt quite far away, where all of us were using video to collaborate and share information at work. And every small business that had a website was making Instagram videos so that they could better communicate with their customers. And here we are today, and I think that future is now. And so that's really the driver of the pivot that we made. We're obviously very happy to be in that position today, and we think we're in an excellent position to be a leader in the market. We added 30 million new users to the platform since the pandemic. We now have over 200 million members on Vimeo today, and they range from professionals to small businesses all the way to Fortune 500 companies like Amazon, like Starbucks, like Deloitte. But what's really exciting, what gets me and my team excited, is seeing the usage and engagement of our products increase. And we have seen that very clearly. The number of videos created and streamed on our platform is up over 8 times versus where we were in February. We are seeing people collaborating more with video, creating more videos, uploading more videos, live streaming more videos, and we're not seeing that engagement slow down. And it really shows us that what we think the pandemic has done is fundamentally and permanently changed behavior, where once you've used video and you've experienced the power of it, you're not likely to go back. So I think there's a huge opportunity for Vimeo to both bring in more corporate customers, as well as materially expand their use of our tools across their organization. We have a goal of being the single video solution for the modern organization in every way that they use video. And we're seeing really great traction in that today. We see town halls being live streamed in TV quality using our tools. We see HR teams using video for training and onboarding of new hires. We see marketing and sales teams using video now to reach their customers. And we're even seeing product engineering creative teams sharing video messages with our new Vimeo Record tool.
Depuis la pandémie, la plateforme Vimeo comprend plus de 200 millions d'utilisateurs dans le monde et la société connaît une traction particulièrement forte avec ses produits d'entreprise et de collaboration. Plus de 3500 entreprises comme Amazon, Starbucks ou encore Siemens utilisent la plateforme chaque jour. Le futur des entreprises reste tout de même incertain avec cette deuxième vague qui touche l'Europe. Pour l'instant, les laboratoires se concentrent plus sur la création d'un vaccin qu'un traitement. Selon le docteur Scott Gottlieb, ancien commissaire de la FDA, les États-Unis devraient à ce stade suivre le modèle de l'Europe afin de mieux contrôler le virus.
Well, we're heading in the direction of Europe in terms of the pervasiveness of the infection here across the United States. Whether or not we need a national lockdown, I think we can deal with this effectively with targeted mitigation on a state-by-state basis. But we're not doing that right now. And so we're building up a lot of trouble for the future. And I think that this is going to explode in several weeks. We're going to see these case numbers really start to explode. Remember, 120,000 cases are in 120,000 cases. We're probably at best diagnosing 1 in 5 cases right now, maybe a little bit less than that. So this is at least 500,000 cases a day, probably more in terms of actual numbers of infections. And it's spread across the United States right now. There's only a handful of places where you have really dense epidemics right now. The Midwest, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, Utah, for example. But it's not like it was when we had the epidemic in New York or the epidemic in the South. We had really concentrated infection in small areas. Right now it's diffuse across the entire United States, but we're building up a lot of trouble for the future. You have to be really worried what January is going to look like, what December is going to look like right now, given the way this is rising. And it's not just the cases, it's the hospitalizations as well. That's really the number to watch. 53,000 people hospitalized, 10,500 people in ICUs. That's a lot, and it's growing very quickly.
That said, trying to find a vague positive out of this, Dr. Gottlieb, if the cases really are 500,000 per day, then are hospitalization rates and death rates per case relatively encouragingly low?
It's absolutely the case that we're doing a better job preserving life in the hospital, and fewer people are being hospitalized. More people are being treated at home. The criteria for hospitalization has gone up, so they're not hospitalizing people as easily. But when you infect this many people, we're going to have a pressed healthcare system. It's just the fact that even if we get the death rates down and we manage people better in the hospital and the flow in the hospital improves, we're discharging more easily, more quickly, we're infecting a lot more people. So eventually the healthcare system is going to get pressed. When you look at what's happening in Utah and South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, where they're building swing capacity in hospitals, that's going to happen across the U.S. And the challenge is we don't have the ability to backstop that many regions. We were able to backstop New York. We were able to backstop the South. But if you have very diffuse spread across the country, which is where we're heading, it's going to be hard for the federal government to backstop that much.
If ever there was a time, Dr. Gottlieb, for the FDA to move fast, now is that time. Where is the emergency use authorization for Regeneron's antibody treatment or some of the rapid saliva tests and some of the other key innovations that have come out that would make this a little bit easier?
Well, really, the near-term game changer is going to be those antibody-based drugs. The vaccines, even if we get an emergency use authorization this year, and I'm on the board of Pfizer, one of the companies that has a vaccine in advanced development, it's really more of a 2021 event until you have protective immunity in people that you've vaccinated. Even if we roll that out this year, it's going to take two injections to get people with protective immunity, and that's really a 2021 event. The antibodies could be available. The challenge there, and I agree with you, I don't know where they are. I thought they would have been authorized already. I don't know what the obstacle is, but we don't have enough doses. So the challenge there is going to be that we didn't make the investments we needed to make in April and May to get the supply on hand. So, we're in a little bit of a bind here, and I think we need to keep that in mind. There's no therapeutic cure coming around the corner. We're going to need to deal with December and January the old-fashioned way, tracking, tracing, targeted mitigation, isolating those who are infected.
Au cours des 7 derniers jours, les États-Unis ont signalé en moyenne plus de 126 000 nouveaux cas, en hausse de plus de 25% par rapport à il y a une semaine. Un défi gigantesque d'ailleurs pour le président élu Joe Biden. Son équipe a déjà présenté un plan complet pour essayer de maîtriser le virus. This plan includes the creation of a pandemic testing board to produce and distribute tens of millions of tests. Let's see how Joe Biden's transition team plans will tackle coronavirus and a battered economy.
Many newly elected presidents have been able to dictate their own agenda as they take office, but the urgency of this moment is going to mean that the history that's happening right now is going to dictate to Joe Biden what his agenda must be. And he's going to start with his first priority, which is the coronavirus. And what we're expecting in terms of getting a handle on COVID-19, he's expecting to announce a coronavirus task force on Monday. At the same time, he's faced with rejuvenating this battered economy and healing the wounds of racial tension in the country. On top of that, he's going to have to unify a fractious Democratic Party where already centrists and left-wing members have been arguing about the path forward. In a Democratic conference call earlier this week, centrists and left-wing members of the Democratic Party were arguing about the use of phrases like socialism and defund the police, and you can tell that that is a theme that's going to be working its way through the administration as the president now is forced to decide who's going to get all these top positions in his administration. And personnel, they say, in Washington, Shep, is policy. And so the big fight inside the Democratic Party is going to be for both sides to try to stock the administration with their people. We'll see how all that goes, Shep.
I heard some names today, Eamon, as possible co-chairs of this coronavirus task force. Is anything confirmed, or what do you have?
Yeah, we do have a sense of who's going to be on that. We're expecting this task force to be announced on Monday. Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General, David Kessler, a former FDA commissioner, and Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith of the Yale School of Medicine, all expected to be on that task force when the president-elect announces it as soon as Monday, Shep.
All right. Have you've been around there and covering White Houses in Washington for a long time, Eamon. Can you relate this sort of party spectacle to any others that we've seen? I mean, I was there when Obama was first brought into office for Inauguration Day. That was big, but this isn't exactly an Inauguration Day.
Yeah, this is entirely different, Shep. I mean, this town was happy when Obama was elected. Nothing like this, though. I mean, you can imagine Washington, D.C. is a deep blue city, and it's surrounded by deep blue states. So just about everybody who lives in the area is for Biden-Harris. But my son and I drove down Connecticut Avenue today to the White House to just check out the scene, and there were people outside, banging pots and pans, waving American flags, cheering in the streets, horns honking, people jumping up and down, blaring music. I saw a couple of guys chugging beers on the street, and at noon. It was a wild party scene from the moment that this news was announced, and I think that the party is going to go well into the night. As I was driving over to our studio tonight, the police actually have exits off the highway blocked going into downtown Washington. So there's an effort here to sort of do some crowd control and keep some of this from getting a little too frantic as the evening goes on. And we'll watch that effort and see how it goes. But I've never seen anything like this in Washington, D.C., Shep.
Joe Biden a déclaré que son objectif numéro 1 était de contrôler la pandémie. Il fera pression pour que les masques soient portés dans tout le pays. Il promet aussi de rendre les tests et le traitement et les vaccins Covid-19 gratuits pour tous les Américains. Et on revient sur l'élection de Joe Biden. La Pennsylvanie a tout fait basculer avec 279 grands électeurs au total. Joe Biden remporte la Maison-Blanche face à Donald Trump et ses 214 grands électeurs. Plusieurs dirigeants mondiaux se sont exprimés sur Twitter pour féliciter le candidat démocrate. World leaders congratulate Biden on his projected election win.
So this country is a bit divided. You have Boris Johnson, who has been an ally of President Trump. So, yes, to see who you think are your friends now coming out and congratulating President-elect Biden, that's got to sting, but that's the reality we're in right now. I'm sure President Trump would have preferred if the people he would consider his friends, who he could pick up the phone and talk to, would have all come out behind him and said, we're not going to support the new newly elected president of the United States, until this process is over.
Right.
But around the world, they're not buying it. For them, it's over. It's the start of a new day. And I have some headlines for tomorrow's papers here. And they talk about, quote, a time to heal. It's Joe. God bless America. Loser Trump given the boot. So the world is moving on, and the world, frankly, has been very tired of the last 4 years of President Trump. It has been exhausting. It has been disruptive. People don't trust President Trump. And there was a recent opinion poll that showed across Europe, only about 16% of people believe that President Trump could be trusted to do the right thing. And that's on a popular level. But that question of trust, does the President of the United States word mean anything, calls into question the whole idea of American credibility. And nowhere is that more important than in matters of war and peace and on the battlefield. And many military leaders I've been speaking to have been very frustrated, ashamed over the last 4 years to serve under this commander-in-chief. There was one incident in particular at the climax of the war against ISIS in Syria and Iraq, in Syria in particular. The United States was using an allied force of Kurds,
right,
and they lost 10,000 people. And after losing 10,000 people, President Trump authorized an invasion against these same people, and the American troops who were with them were ordered not to defend their allies. And they thought that was immoral. They thought it was wrong. The U.S. Defense Secretary Mattis resigned over it. So it is not just a question of personality, that your people here in Europe didn't like him. They didn't trust him, and neither did many in the U.S. military.
La France, la Suède, l'Italie, le Canada et même Israël font partie des pays qui ont félicité Joe Biden quelques heures après les résultats des chaînes américaines. Ce n'est pas le cas cependant de l'Iran et de la Russie. À ce jour, ni le président Poutine ni le ministère des Affaires étrangères n'ont fait le moindre commentaire. And in the meantime, Trump refuses to accept election results and says it's far from over. Donald Trump refuse de croire les résultats des médias et les qualifie à nouveau de fake news. Il se lance dès à présent dans une véritable bataille judiciaire, État par État.
Well, it's a fairly lengthy statement, Savannah, Chuck, and Lester. It is about 3.5 paragraphs. I won't read the entire thing, but I will read you some highlights, which is that the president is to falsely pose as the winner, and that the president is alleging his media allies are trying hard to help him, insisting the election is far from over. This is, frankly, the statement that I think many of the president's critics and even some around him expected him to put out when the race was ultimately called as the direction it appeared to be heading in over the last 24 hours or so for Joe Biden. The president is resisting the results of the election, despite the fact that there has been no widespread evidence of fraud. He is insisting that he will continue moving forward with legal challenges in the courts, and he is blaming, as he has often done over the last 4 years that he's been in office, the news media for something that he simply does not like. The president, as we mentioned, is currently on his golf course. As I'm going through the rest of the statement, the president insists he's not going to rest until the American people have what he describes as an honest vote count. Again, this election process has worked exactly as expected. It took a little while. We knew it was going to take a little while. As Chuck knows, we knew it was going to take a while because of all those mail-in ballots, the ballots that in some states have been gone through. There will be recount fights likely. The Trump campaign has already threatened to do a recount in Wisconsin. We know that's where Georgia has been headed. But this is President Trump, true to what we have seen from him since the campaign started for him back in 2015, 2016, defiant even in the face of the reality that this presidential race has slipped out of his fingers. It is out of his grasp. He will fight to try to get it back. He cannot. It appears the writing is on the wall. Joe Biden has the 270 electoral votes he needs. The question now, can the president actually do anything about that if he refuses to concede? Concession is not a legal requirement. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that President Trump needs to deliver a formal speech calling for unity and handing the reins of power over to Joe Biden. That is a tradition. And if there's one thing we know about this president is that he has not been traditional in the past, and he has bucked that at every turn.
Cette élection est loin d'être terminée. Voilà les mots de Donald Trump dans un communiqué. Donald Trump promet que dès cette semaine, son équipe d'avocats commencera sa bataille devant les tribunaux afin de s'assurer que les lois électorales sont pleinement respectées. Et en ces temps incertains, la désinformation fuse sur les réseaux sociaux. Si les résultats sont validés, l'élection de Joe Biden ne pourra être confirmée que le 14 décembre et le 6 janvier, lorsque les grands électeurs et le Congrès auront approuvé le vote populaire. 35 jours de travail acharné pour les équipes de Facebook et Twitter afin de limiter la désinformation et d'éviter les émeutes.
That's right. Facebook and Twitter are taking unprecedented steps to stop disinformation and to slow the spread of discord. Facebook is pulling down groups aiming to oppose election results, including ones organizing in-person action with the hashtag #StopTheSteal. The company is also reportedly looking to make users make additional clicks before they can share content to add friction and slow the spread of falsehoods. Facebook is also limiting distribution of election-related Facebook live streams as well. And though Steve Bannon's account is still active on Facebook, Twitter banned his account for glorifying violence. Facebook did pull down one of his videos from his account, however. Now, meanwhile, Twitter suspended fake AP accounts that made false election claims, among others, and Twitter clarified that it has flagged a dozen of the president's tweets as misleading since Tuesday. Now, his account could be blocked if he loses the election and continues to post the kinds of tweets he's been sharing. Twitter's policy is to leave up and label the president's tweets that incite violence, tweets that are allowed because he's an elected official. But of course, that could change. Guys, back over to you.
Any detail, Julia, on just how much of this we are seeing across sites like Facebook, these calls for violence and incitement of violence, militias potentially,
well, look, Sarah,
as a result of the election?
Well, I think if Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are doing a good job, they're pulling down this content or they're stopping the spread of this content before it goes viral. So I think that's something we're going to hear a lot about. Facebook did announce today that they had pulled down some coordinated networks of pages and groups that were around the world, but they actually share data on that kind of stuff monthly. So remember, they are constantly fighting misinformation around the world, not just around this election. So I think we will ultimately get some more data on how much they've prevented from being shared. But already it sounds like significantly more than they could have possibly considered doing with the last presidential election.
Twitter a d'ailleurs déjà bloqué le compte de Steve Bannon ainsi que des faux comptes de l'agence de presse AP. Le réseau social aurait également signalé plus d'une douzaine de tweets du président Trump comme des tweets mensongers. Thank you all for being with us. Merci à tous d'avoir participé à ce format 100% hybride. See you very soon for the rest of international news.